This is the temple of an Yggdrasil log that forged himself into a legend. The hardest wood in the game, available only in the Mistlands, and as a finite resource, this Yggdrasil log traveled across the 10th world, sailed in a longship through storms, from beyond the foggy pinnacles of the Mistlands, the warm shores of the plains, and the dark pine trees of the Black Forest, all the way back into the meadows, not once, but twice, becoming therefore the most cherished Yggdrasil log of all time, Carl. This build was redeemed by one of my viewers on Twitch, who requested that I build a Viking temple for the Viking god Carl in the Black Forest. This whole story started as a joke in a previous no-map run when an Yggdrasil log fell into my longboat, and I sailed away with it between islands looking for the queen. It became a very cherished character in my no-map streams, and he was named Carl by the viewers. We took him back into the Meadows base and set him up standing straight in his little observation deck, not without struggling to get him up there. This request was essentially a good excuse to make an official worship place for the log and transform the legend of Carl into a myth. So let me show you around and show you the little tips and tricks that I use here. I decided to do this build in creative, with mods like Gizmo for extra rotations, plant everything for extra bushes and trees, and More Vanilla Prefabs for extra building and furnishing pieces. Given that Carl is an Yggdrasil log, the build had to have a spirit that hovered around nature, myth, and magic. It had to give out the feeling of awe towards the might of tall pine forests, the overgrowing wilderness, the abundance of leaves, and the fertility of nature. I scouted around several forests looking for a good spot for the build, near the shores and near the mountains, but the one that caught my eye was this cliff, next to a river overlooking the forest. It felt like the right spot for a nature spirit kind of god. The layout is reminiscent of Viking staff churches, although I was hesitant about the shape. I thought maybe an open-air ritual area would be more fitting, and although the idea could have worked, I ended up going with an enclosed building somewhat invaded by the wilderness. It has 4 openings, one on each side of the build, and it has no extra floors on the inside. This all gives the temple a less enclosed aspect, resembling more like a covered ritual passageway in the forest, more than a church. The roof has several layers, and I kept adding more and more as I went on to give it a less flat-looking shape. The last layer of roof that I added was actually one popping outwards in each entrance, because it felt like you needed a kind of porch area before entry, and also at the top on the shorter sides of the build. The structure is mostly made out of ash wood beams and is held by iron beams on either side of the entrance, hidden inside the ash wood beams. These diagonal beams are actually rotated a little bit more, thanks to Gizmo, to fit the angles and look seamless. They go all the way up and help support the roof. The panels on the sides are actually 3 small overlapping wood walls, spaced vertically 0.5 meter by the core wood beam. It was an interesting find to be able to use the sides of the beams of the regular wood like this, and show the little horizontal line. In addition to that, I used dark wood dividers, rotated sideways with Gizmo. Under the entrance roofs, I used ash wood decorative walls, rotated in a way that could cover the opening of the entrances. These entrances are made with Gizmo, with extra rotations added via the control menu so that I could get a round door shape. That opening has actually 3 layers, one made of regular wood beams, sandwiched between 2 layers of ash wood beams. On the outside of the building, the gardens serve as the extension of the temple, with pathways leading out of each door. 2 exits lead to paths for pilgrims to go in, and the other 2 exits lead to sitting areas overlooking the rivers and the forest, with some really cool little flower decorations that I made, which are also inside in the temple. These are made of several item stands placed around in a circle, on which I placed thistle, dandelions, and fragrant bundles, which are usually sold by the witch. I then placed a Yule wreath upside down to have the green part show without the ribbon. I used this little trick in other areas of the building as flower arrangements. I also placed these flower bouquets on hanging braziers on each entrance, since these can be used as a surface to place the item stands. Those little bouquets are the only part of the garden where there are flowers. The rest of the gardens are green bushes and trees, mossy rocks and woods, some of which are made available via the More Vanilla Prefabs mod and some available via the Plant Everything mod. I even added some vines going up the building. All this overflowing greenery seemed fitting for the Temple of Karl. And since this is a magical, mystical temple, I added some items that glow green in between the bushes. These are primal weapons from the Ashlands, like the bow, the crossbow, as well as the vine staff, and they were all placed on item stands on the ground, letting only the shiny part of the weapon pop out of the ground like a magical plant. So when you go on the inside of the temple, which again is a big open space, tall enough to fit the whole Yggdrasil log, you can see the floor has main pathways leading to the log, which are these mossy stones made available by the More Vanilla Prefabs mod. But since they are pretty big, I lowered them a little with free placement, so they would only appear in the 2-meter wide area in the center of each entrance. The panels on the inside are covered with more ash with decorative walls, partly to hide the overlap of the small wooden walls, partly because they fit the root leaf pattern in all the rest of the build. Each entrance has flower arrangements in pots on each side, which I actually copied and pasted with the pipette tool from the More Vanilla Prefabs mod. This allows me to select an area where items are placed and copy it with the hammer tool. I can then place them elsewhere in the build. It is a very handy tool for replicating windows and parts of a build that repeat themselves. On each corner of the room, there are bots and benches on rugs for the pilgrims wanting to sit down and contemplate the mighty Karl. And at the center, there it is, the full Yggdrasil log standing tall, albeit with some support made of ashwood dividers. He is surrounded by a banquet of offerings given by the pilgrims, feasts, vine berries, and of course, one will not forget, the love potions. I also added some vine staff placed on item stands so that there will be this green glow in the offerings, reminiscent of the glowing plants in the garden. The lighting effect on the log was achieved with Dvergr circlets placed on item stands at the top and at the bottom. These Dvergr circlets are sold by Haldor usually, and they emit this nice bluish spotlight kind of light when placed on an item stand. So on the top I did have to rotate the ashwood dividers a little bit to allow the placement of the item stands. This is because the item stands were taking a lot of space between the dividers and the Yggdrasil log was glitching out of its box. I had to place him back into place a few times, not without struggle. The bottom item stands are rotated so that when I place the Dvergr circlets on them, the light shines upwards instead of downwards. These double set of circlets give a very magical glow to the tree. The rest of the lighting items in the build are simply more standing braziers on each corner, as well as Dvergr lamps made available by the More Vanilla Prefabs mod and placed on the upper corners of the roofs. They stay there, they don't fall down, kind of like glued to the roof tile. At night, the whole temple looks very magical, with all the little lights sparkled around, as well as the lace-like pattern on the sides of the building, where the light tries to go out. A truly magical place for the mythical Yggdrasil log named Karl. I really enjoyed building this temple, and I know we had quite a few juggles with the viewers while building it on stream. I went back a few times after the streams to keep adding in some details that I thought about afterwards. All in all, a beautiful build and also a very funny temple to build. The story of Karl, the Yggdrasil log that sailed the 10th world, is now engraved in the temple stones and in this video, and hopefully more adventures await this log in the future. So yeah, this was the tour of the Viking temple for Karl, the Yggdrasil log. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you had at least a little chuckle at the silliness of his story. If you did, remember to give the video a thumbs up. I will catch you in the next video, and in the meantime, let's all hail Karl.